We've moved over here to a line of people who are going to be briefly speaking. Go ahead.
We've talked about a lot of things here today, but what we haven't talked about are the residents of Eureka. What happened was you had a problem with an individual in Redway. The sheriff's department picked him up and brought that problem to Eureka with horrendous consequences. That is not acceptable. Now, if other counties can come up with a solution, then we need to come up with a solution. I have heard all the excuses that I want to hear from every one of you today. What we want are answers, not reason why you can't do something. We want to find out what you can do. And that's one thing that you haven't done here today. And that's what you need to do. You brought this problem to us. This problem didn't originate in Eureka. So you protected and you served the rest of the county at the expense of Eureka. That's what you did. Now you need to get together and come up with a solution and stop telling us why you can't do something, because obviously other counties are able to do that. So you need to sit down and figure out what you can do.
I wanted to address the problem of releasing people with a debit card or check or any other kind of crap that doesn't work on the bus. Most people that get out of jail are going to be riding a bus if they could, if you release them during bus times. And that gets you up to like 9 o'clock at night, and it starts real early, about 7. So use the public cheap transportation system. Either give them a bus pass or give them cash, because that debit card isn't going to function on a bus, okay? And a lot of people don't have debit, credit, or whatever kind of cards. And right now, for me to understand that you're releasing people without cash, for my residents in Arcata to be stuck in Eureka, it's a real pain, and I'd hate it to be me. Thank you.
I'm going to actually read another card that relates to this directly. This is written by a woman who's 65 years old. She was arrested at night, had $5 in cash on hand, and when she was released on bail, the money taken from me was not given back to her, and there was no offer of transportation. She ended up walking home and not asked about a plan. In the best of worlds, it would have worked, but sometimes it just doesn't work.
I have a question. It kind of relates to Kathleen's statement earlier about dual diagnosis. And I understand that we are asking you guys to do a lot by doing dual diagnosis and psychological evaluation. And it's very hard to see those things just even with someone that's drunk or that's been in jail for a few days. And you've stated that you have some training in evaluating, but exactly how much? Because you have the responsibility of keeping the community safe with your evaluation and providing services the best you can to these people. So providing you guys with the most progressive and in-depth research and schooling regarding this might be of great benefit. I don't know if you guys already have that, but that seems like now that we have put mental health and crime together in one package, that we need our people addressing crime as mentally, healthily aware, I got a little confused, as those that are doing simply psychological evaluations. And we're asking Sequoia Sempervirens to make criminal provisions, so we're asking both people to do something, and it's not really matching up.
For a number of years, I just wanted to respond to the cross-training efforts between law enforcement and the Department of Health and Human Services and our mental health division. And for a number of years, after a series of incidents that resulted in encounters between law enforcement and the mentally ill, that resulted in fatal outcomes, we developed a evidence-based practice. We imported an evidence-based practice. That means good science practice that originated in Memphis, and it was critical incident training. And we have for a number of years now offered, I don't know how many hundreds of law enforcement and emergency responders have participated. We do trainings every year. We are looking at advanced trainings, and the trainings are to assure that law enforcement's aware of the symptoms of mental illness, other types of behavioral health disorders, and is able to respond appropriately. And so we do offer fairly significant coursework for law enforcement of all types, and we just completed a course a couple weeks ago in which, again, we did training. In terms of the jail, anyone who's staying in the jail longer than overnight and is exhibiting behaviors is placed in a safety cell. And behavioral health, we send our clinicians in and our psychiatrists in. We provide nursing support, medication support. So we're not demanding psychiatric license level capacities out of law enforcement. We're giving them the basic tools to recognize what is a psychotic behavior, how to react to that, to not agitate, how to engage appropriately to avoid assault or aggressive behavior. And in terms of the science of co-occurring disorders, we call it, meaning we acknowledge that people have both mental illness and behavioral health substance abuse disorders many times together. And in the old days, we sent people to deal with their substance abuse issues first before we could determine their behavioral health issues, or conversely, dealt with the behavioral health issues before they engaged in substance abuse. And now we have merged our alcohol and drug and mental health board into a behavioral health board, and we're practicing co-occurring disorders treatment. So we're dealing with those concurrently. So the science is evolving, treatment's evolving, and we're doing a lot of cross-training with law enforcement, and we continue to do that. And I think it's having remarkable results. We do also have, on the behavioral health side, have trained with law enforcement in hostage negotiations. So we have Health and Human Services for trained hostage negotiators, and we're available to go out together on high-end crisis situations. And then finally, in regard to Eureka, we are working really intensely, partially through Supervisor Bass convening groups that's bringing Chief Mills and I together in terms of how do we develop a mutual response team that's going out in the streets. It's not a crisis team, but it's a team to look at those with mental illness that are homeless or causing problems before a crisis, and looking at what models are out there for us to develop and bring into Eureka to help stabilize that situation. So a lot's being done, and I just wanted to clarify for you.
Hello. I have two quick things. I think it'll be under 2 minutes for both of them. But is it documented somewhere that somebody has a plan when they get released from the jail? So you never know whether somebody is actually asked that or not. Is that true? Okay. And my second, which I think might be a good idea, my second thing is, Mr. Downey, if a law gets passed dealing with nighttime release, which I believe you referred prior to a law that did not get passed, would you have a constitutional problem with such a law? I know in the past you've come out with constitutional issues against other possible regulations in other areas.
No, I would not. In fact, when I referred to this Senate bill that didn't pass, our policy in regards to sentenced subjects mirrors this bill today.
But that's just sentenced subjects, you said.
For sentenced individuals, correct, and that's what this dealt with.
Oh, okay.
So I would have no problem under that auspice to go along with that.
I see. But if it weren't sentenced, then that's a different issue.
Pardon me?
If they weren't sentenced individuals, that's a different issue.
probably a whole new legislation come out of this. It may involve that, but at this time, we've mirrored our policy to this legislation that did not pass.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question, and sorry if it's ignorant. Are people that are detained for intoxication, are they drug screened at that point? And if so, is there different protocols for what drug? Thank you. For what drug might return?
No, they're not drug screened
At all. Okay.
Why not?
Okay.
when officers, which are most arrests, when officers in the county arrest someone for 647F, when they are unable to care for themselves out in public due to an intoxicated state, most officers transport the problem, they deem the problem, to the jail facility and book them and also do a detention-only certificate, an 849B, which means the problem is the fact that they are intoxicated. And so once they sober up, it's deemed as a detention only, and they're released. At that point, we do not screen them as far as drugs. If someone is arrested for being on the influence of drugs, there is an option for an officer to go a different section, 11550 H&S. It's a different section. At that point, many officers take a blood screen, a blood draw, but we do not do exit screens when it comes to drugs.
Billy, it's important for them to know that they won't get the test back, that blood test for days. If it's not alcohol, you can't capture it on blood. I mean on breath. If you take blood, people won't even know.
I was told that the hospitals can get a turnaround in 2 hours.
Yes, hospitals have a lab on staff. See, we have an evidentiary lab standard that we have to go by. So it's Department of Justice. It's drugs are sent out. We do alcohol in county, drugs are sent out of county. And so it can take a month to get a drug screen back.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Edith Fritchie, and I'd like to represent NAMI Humboldt, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Most of you in law enforcement have had contact with NAMI members who have spoken at the CIT trainings every year. In fact, we started trying to do CIT trainings on our own back in the early 90s, might have been even the late 80s. One woman took it on, and finally the entire state took it on, so we were very grateful about that. But the National Alliance on Mental Illness is a group that supports family members and advocates for those people who have a mental illness. We have a very good working relationship with both the officers and with the mental health department. I feel that they respect the work that we do, and we respect the work that they do. I think we have a very good relationship and have had for many years. The one suggestion that comes up over and over again is I've taught the family-to-family classes, which some of you may have heard of. It's a 12-week class for family members on how to deal with their family members or family member or friend or whatever who has a mental illness. In those classes, people over and over bring up the topic that they are so afraid when their family members go to jail, not that they're going to jail, but that when will they get out? And how will we know when they get out? And no, they won't let us know when they get out. They won't call and ask us to bring them home. The other thing that they do, that they mention over and over again is, hey, this kid can really hold his act together. He looks great in front of law officers. He just looks fantastic. He can hold himself together as long as he needs to. And I think they worry that their kids are fooling you, you know. And you say you have these practices where you know how to observe them. And when it's a co-occurring problem, they may get over their drunkenness, but the psychosis may still be there, and that they're leaving the jail, bringing their psychoses and their deliria with them. So thank you for all you do. And that's our only suggestion, is that the family members have, not the family members, but those with mental illness have a little bit more screening when they leave the jail. Thank you.
Have everyone speak before the panel sums.
This is technically the time that we were going to break up. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put, instead of a 2-minute, we're going to put how about a 15-second presentation, or a 30-second, 45-second? How long are you willing to stay? Okay. You're on.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Marshall. I'm a member of the Hoopa Valley community. And for those of you who came over a few weeks ago to talk with us about the myriad of issues that we face in our community, I thank you. It's one of the first times I've seen a number of people come over to help address the issues that we're dealing with. With that said, over the years, growing up in this area, leaving for work, and then moving home to help my aging mother, I've seen things in the community not change. One of those is the late night releases. The reason I felt it was important enough to come out tonight for this was simply because my mother does receive the calls from people in jail looking for rides back to Hoopa. For me to drive out today, it took me over an hour. It was roughly an hour and 20 minutes due to the weather conditions. My mother is 78. To get a call at 2 a.m. in the morning to come out to pick somebody up who, when she doesn't see well, at 78 years old, knowing there's no one else to pick them up, she does her best to come out here. With me home now, I've been asked a couple times to come out and pick up nieces, nephews, extended family. For us, family relationship is six people out or better. So we're asked to come out and pick them up. If we don't pick them up, we are also conscious that Highway 299 is a dangerous road. I myself have had classmates that went missing on that road when they were hitchhiking, never seen again. One was Chick White, one of my classmates. She was out here during the daytime for a court hearing and was hitchhiking home in the daytime and disappeared. Now, what happens to young people or just people in general when they're hitchhiking on 299 in the middle of the night with people going missing and we never find them again? Or the issue that we face when an elder is contacted, because that's generally who's contacted, to come out and pick someone up at that time in the morning when they don't see well, they might not be driving well, they function great during the day, but at that time of night, not so well. So I would ask you to really look at that type of release for the outlying communities, because I'm sure with us dealing with this ourselves, there are other communities outlined all around Humboldt County that deal with the same issue. So please review the policy, and if you can, let them out earlier where it gives us time during the day to come out and pick them up, because a bus does not run in our area to bring them home. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for being here for this meeting. I appreciate it, and I appreciate hearing about police officers and attorneys talking about constitutional rights. I'm glad to hear that. Now, we can't talk about Father Freed as an injunction, even though there's been all this stuff in the media on it. Not okay. So hypothetically, I'm talking about police procedures here, and maybe talk about a change in police procedures, because hypothetically, if you pick somebody up from an outlying community, and they are not just drunk. They're not just another drunk. They're violently drunk, and they're home invasive drunk, and they're looking for their wife in a microwave. They're really, really having emotional challenges. And then they're brought to Eureka, and they're violent in the police car, and they're trying to kick you out the window of the police car. And Semper Virens doesn't want them because they're too disturbed, and the jail doesn't want them because they're too violent, and the sheriff has to release them after 11 hours. I appreciate that. I understand that. And then they turn up on private property, and if a police officer, patrol officer, can't ask them to identify themselves when they're trespassing on private property on New Year's Eve, and if they identify themselves and they go back to the jail and say, this guy has a prior record for violent, bizarre behavior, court record, he was picked up for very bizarre behavior, hypothetical person in outlying community, and then they are brought acting violently, trying to kick out the police windows on the way to Eureka. And then Semper Virens says, way out there. The police people are saying, guys, way out there, more than the average drunk. That's what I'm saying. More than the 15 or 20 drunks you've already brought in on New Year's Eve. Okay, and then you release him, and he turns up in a private property. and you kick them off twice, the security officer allegedly, all alleged, and the police, the patrol officer, what we used to call a beat officer, the patrol officer identifies this guy, well then maybe sometime during the night, maybe talk about police procedures where the patrol officer drives back around after checking out a crazy party. I don't know how busy they were New Year's Eve, okay, drives back around and looks for a broken window. You know, drive past, oh, look, the window's broken and there's a pipe here. Maybe I should check out the building to see if there's a crime going on. So maybe I've got a pie in the sky attitude, but maybe talk about police procedures when you have an especially significant alleged perp who seems to be really gone. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to preach, or I'm not going to refer to any particular situation, but there was a particular situation that precipitated this very important meeting, and I really appreciate the fact that that you've called this meeting and that you're talking with the community. Earlier on, Officer Wilkinson referred to the fact that policies are constantly under review. And I think that's where I'd like to bring the conversation back to. What would it take to change the policy around late night release? Is there a legal impact? Is there a legal constituent to it? And is there a financial impact? And how can we address that? And how can we move forward? Because I think that is really the key issue. That's why most people are here. What would it take to change that policy?
I want to echo what the lady said about screening. My understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when a person is arrested, there's no background check made on him with very few exceptions. So you don't know what he's done in the past. And I understand that there's no thorough risk assessment made when he leaves. So it's an unknown all the way around. And asking the person what his plan is doesn't seem to me to be a very good thing, because they're not responsible a lot of times for their own behavior. I think it's the discharged person that should be making the plan, not the individual. Thank you.
I just wanted to touch briefly on the gentleman who went earlier, the hypothetical situation. I had a question about communication. It seems like if an individual had that many run-ins with the law in one night, they would have been brought in and kept a little bit longer due to if they had reviewed the history. And I don't know, does the sheriff department communicate with Eureka PD and communicate with security guards? Because it seems like a lack of communication that occurred.
Yeah. We're going to let everyone speak who's been waiting, and then we'll give the panelists a chance to respond.
Hello, I am the 65-year-old lady who was arrested for an alleged spousal abuse, and I was taken to jail, and my purse and medication was taken from me, and I posted bail the next morning, and when I was released, nobody asked me how I was going to get home. Nobody asked me if I had a plan. I do not have a prior record prior to this event, but at 65, I walked home in the rain because the money that was in my wallet was kept to pay for the comb that I didn't use, the toothbrush that I never used, the writing paper that I was given, the little pencil that I was given, a stamp I think I got, and you know, I certainly should not have been in a situation where I was arrested, But nonetheless, I think that it might be in your best interest to indicate if indeed you have asked a person those questions in regards to how are you going to get home or do you have a plan. Thank you.
I'm Macy Boughton. I live on J Street. I live on J, really close to the courthouse, and the incident at St. Bernard's that we're not talking about is in my neighborhood. It could have happened. It could have happened to one of my neighbors, and last night it did. Basically, we had a person sitting on the porch of the elderly deaf people next door to me, and the neighbor across the street called my house because I'm the neighborhood watch coordinator, and sometimes the people in our group don't want to call the police, so they call me. And what should I do about it? And rather than try to talk them into calling the police, I did it myself, and they came, and they took him away in cuffs, the man who had been sitting on the porch for quite a long time. He was cuffed and taken away. I don't know what for. I don't think it's illegal to sit on somebody's porch, but anyway, they did dispose of him, and nothing bad happened. So the person who spoke earlier about the bus pass just kind of made a light bulb click because it doesn't really cost the county anything to pass out a bus pass. The bus is already going down there, right? So figuring out a way to release the person in the hours that the bus is running and then handing him a free bus pass doesn't cost the county anything. And it's not a liability because he's on a public bus, right? So that's one thing. And then the other person who brought up the communication interdepartment and with the other agencies, it just seems like, and this happened to me as well. We had a car stolen. My daughter left her keys on the counter at the movie theater, and somebody took off with their BMW. And I called the Arcata police. I called the Eureka police. Arcata said, it's not our jurisdiction. We can't take your report. So did I get it back through either of those places? No, we got it ourselves. We put posters up all over HSU, all the neighborhoods we could think of, and somebody saw the car and called me, and we got it back. It was full of tickets from the city of Arcata. It was parked illegally. So that was a mass communication problem, and I have a problem with that. I also have a problem that in the North Coast Journal that week, people were overheard talking about a home invasion robbery, and, oh, we have these keys that we found on the counter at the movie theater. Guess whose house keys those were? And they're talking about a home invasion robbery. Of course, they could have looked at the car registration and figured out whose keys those are. So I'm just lucky we're still here. But certain bad things can happen, and I just like to cut it down to a manageable level. Thank you.
I have a question for everybody in the room that I don't know if it can logistically actually be answered right now, as we are all part of the community and we all have rights. And I was, believe it or not, once arrested at 21 years old, and I was taken to jail there to the Eureka facility. And a friend of mine, I was a designated driver that night, and a friend of mine had gotten, he was very out of line, someone I was supposed to be driving. I should have been looking out for him better. He was arrested by a very young, inexperienced officer, first couple weeks on the job, and what happened. When that was over, I made the mistake of talking to someone who was trying to do their job and expressing my distaste over what had happened, which point I was arrested and taken to the jail. And my question is that request and a question. My request is that we all be extremely delicate, because when you come from a place of wanting to do good, you have a good shot. If you come from a place of hurt or anger, those actions that you produce usually don't work out very well. So I know we all have wonderful intentions, and that's what I ask is that do we feel that it's time? Where are we going to find this sort of balance between our personal freedoms? Because I was released at 4:46 in the morning, and was very glad to be released at that time. But it's my first time being arrested, and only time being arrested. So what's coming down here is that we are going to be asked to find a balance of our personal freedom and safety in generating these policies. And my question is that my request is that we do that with a very delicate, sensitive heart and wonder. I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Yes. I would like to get a response from the panel to what I said, that there's no background checks made when someone goes to jail, no thorough risk assessment when they leave, and putting responsibility on the patient to make a decision when he's really not able to do so.
Well, when a person is booked in the facility, there is a check done on that person. We know what their criminal history is. We have all the information available to us. As far as a risk assessment at the end of their time there, again, it's based on officers' observations who have been trained in those indicators and their level of intoxication or being under the influence. If they are still under the influence or intoxicated, we'll hold on to them. But those assessments are made. We, again, are not a mental health facility or a detox facility. We are a jail. Our job is to incarcerate those that are brought into our custody, whatever agency brings them into be into our custody. So we have to make those determinations based upon the training and under the confines of the law. So that's where we're at for that. But we do know their history when they are brought in. We know what their past history is, what their criminal record is or is not. So that information is available to us.
We're going to go ahead and close this part.
I'm sorry. There's some additional information. We do have a pilot program, a pretrial release program, where we do risk assessment for pretrial release. That only applies to people who make it all the way to an OR hearing before the court. And my department, the probation department, and the correctional officers will do an assessment of that person with an actuarial tool, and we will make a report to the court. We'll make a recommendation based on the score, the risk score, and that person's history and what their linkages are to the community, what their likelihood is to reoffend, what their likelihood is to fail to appear for court, because that's the primary purpose of a pretrial program. And then it's the court's decision. So they could release them straight out OR. They could put them on a supervised release program, which often they do. And many people also are allowed to bail once the bail is set. So we do some assessment. It's not for every person being released from jail. It's only a limited population for people who make it to the OR hearing stage of the court process.
So I want to thank, I'm sure everyone is grateful to Dr. Sattler for doing a wonderful job moderating. Thank you. I pressed him into service. And Reverend Susan Armstrong will give us a brief closing. And again, I apologize for us going over time. We've sort of touched the tip of the iceberg here, but I feel that a lot of education has happened today, and we want to thank everyone for attending. Susan.
Everybody, please stand for a moment and join me in a few moments of silence. A few months of silence. Oh, every microphone is different. In memory of Father Eric Fried and in memory of all of the victims of violence in Humboldt County, let us just be silent for a moment. Thank you.